Turn it on.
All right.
Good evening. January 16th, COB interview is now in session. Mr. Samuel Sloss,
Yes.
please proceed.
Okay. My interest in serving on this board was to actually give back to the community and serve the community. I mean, it's a great city, Nashville, but I think that there are communities inside our city that have lost trust in process of policing and the investigation process of misconduct. I think that they needed, a fair board to look into these matters. A lot of people in these communities feel that when the police are actually investigating their own, that nothing is actually going to be done, or some things are going to be looked over because of, they are all working together at some point, and then you have the officers investigating officers. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to serve. I have served on committees before my job, where there was I was on a communication committee where we tried to bridge the gap between management and union employees to come up with a solution to things that people have problems with before they go into grievance status. I've done that, so that's one reason why I wanted to serve on the board. My background with civil rights, and I know, civil rights are designed for everyone to be treated fairly, and that's what I am. I'm a fair person. Everyone is, has the right to live a healthy life in the community. The equity part of it is, to me, people that don't have, people that, need assistance to get to that same level. They may need some type of assistance to get on the same playing field as others. I'm doing this really fast. I didn't know it was going to be this quick. But describe my background and familiarity with criminal justice. I'm not a police officer, never took any criminal justice classes, but my father was a police officer for 37 years. He was a Metro police officer, and he was actually over internal affairs at one point in time. So I know the struggle that police have with investigating their own. I have done, when I was younger, we done ride-alongs with my dad, and I could see how he, engaged the community and with his police and stuff like that. But me, myself, I've never been an officer. My wife was she was a dispatcher for Metro Police for a while. So I hear stories from her, and I heard stories from my dad when he was living. That's all I have right there on my background with the policing. I do think that, I noticed the question said, did I live in a economically distressed area? I don't think that I do, but I can relate to people that do, and I can relate to the police officers also, with my dad being a police officer, and I have lived in, when I was younger, distressed areas, so I could see how, police interacted with those communities.
Now I can entertain the question from the committee members.
I have a question.
Sure.
You talked about, through your dad's experiences, having a sense of the difficulty of investigating their own. Can you tell us more about what you saw with that difficulty?
Well, with him being, as long as he was with the force, a lot of the officers that he may have had to investigate were co-workers, were friends of his that probably worked up under him for, at different stages in his career. I mean, when he retired, he was a major and the commander of the North Precinct when he retired. So a lot of officers, I'm sure, he had up under him at one time, and then he ends up having to investigate some type of misconduct. And I'm sure it's very hard to do that because you have these feelings for these people that you have known for a long time, and then you have to bring some type of discipline to those people. Pretty rough.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I don't have any other questions, Madam Chair.
Any other questions from the members?
I apologize for being a bit late.
Oh, that's okay.
Do you have anything extra to add on to your experience and why we should choose you and so forth?
Other than me being a fair and impartial person, that's all I can say for myself. I want fairness for everyone, no matter what part of town you live at, what sex, anything. I want everybody to just have the same fair treatment across the board.
Can't agree more.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
Sloss. Thank you. I'm trying to figure out how this book is organized.
Yes, it should be
I thought it was
organized
reverse
with.
alpha, but
I thought he tried really hard to give us whole.
The first one is,
is it organized?
yes,
how
it
we-
organized as we, yeah.
So as we go.
Yes.
Okay, so this is Mr. Sloss's
And
resume.
I
So
will,
next person should be Mr. Pointer.
if I
no,
can,
Miss-
I don't know who we have at 6, but one of my nominees is in a different room at 6, so I'm gonna step out for that 1 10-minute period and then
Sure.
come back, so I need to know in advance. Whoever, if that, George Williams, let him know I'm not, he's here already, don't want him to think I'm skipping out on him.
Hey.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Can you,
Is the next, said the Apple person, thank you, where is it?
enter?
I'll just try the enter button. I'll just try the-
Are you Ms. Pointer?
Yes, I am.
Sorry, I'm a Mac snob and I just froze on a Windows laptop. Sorry, got it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being in here. So just respect to everybody's time because everybody has 10 minutes.
Right.
So I do understand you have talked about this based on the 3 important questionnaire. So
Okay.
please proceed, Mr. Pointer.
Okay. On the first one, my interest in being on the committee is to help, to assist your policemen or whoever we need to assist. I'm not here to try to be judge or jury. I just think an extra set of eyes is always good. It's not good to jump to conclusions. It's always good to hear both sides, as I've always done. My background, only thing I've done, I've been a guard at the women's prison for 2 years. But I do have 13 years experience as being a president of MDHA, one of their sites. And being a president, I have been a mediator several times. I go out in the community to get things like Night Out Against Crime. I organize that. I organize trips for the residents there. But my main thing that I see myself doing is being a mediator for the residents there. Sometimes residents have a tendency to want to fight, drug activities, someone's getting caught in something like that. So as a president, I've asked to come down and watch the tapes and review them and give my opinion. My opinion is not the number one. It's left up to the managers and the directors of MDHA to do the punishment. but I was there asked to review the films, like I said, and to give my opinion, and I do it all in writing. My background, like I said, is only with being as a guard at the women's prison. But I do feel that I could be qualified for this because I do have, like I said, the experience as a president, and it goes a long way. We travel to understand what the residents need at the MDH property. But we also try to get involved definitely with the community, and that's what I tried to do because I was the president in Madison Towers, it's located in Madison. And we did a lot of things for the community, and the community helped us too. I'm not saying I'm the one to make it safe, but I have, I hope and pray that I can do things. In the Bible, in the biblical days, it was when someone killed someone, it was an eye for an eye. We cannot do that now. There are laws that are put in place. We must abide by the laws. You know, so if things does not work with the laws, then I feel you can seek out for a lawyer or for someone else's opinion. But I tell my children, I tell my grandchildren, let's let the law, and I put emphasis on that, let's let the law take care of this. We jump to conclusions before anything even happens. Or you did this, you did that. That's not the way it is. I'm a peaceful person. I'm a loving person, and I try to get along with everybody, and I believe I do. But I believe right is right and wrong is wrong. And I believe if I'm on this board, that I can use my eyesight to look at whatever is presented to us. I will give my fair and honest opinion about this. I have not had anyone in my family to be killed by things that's going on. I thank God that I haven't. But my feelings and decisions on that is that you have to let the law go in first. That's why laws were set in place. You know, if we were still living the way they did in the Bible, this world would be a total mess. So I thank God that we have people in the Senate that or wherever that makes these laws and set them there. They're set there for a reason and for a purpose. And I think everybody, not only me and my children and my grandchildren, I think everybody needs to let the law take their positions. Let them do what they set out to do. You know, people jump to conclusions. And I feel that if I'm on this board, I would be as fair as the next person, because I'm fair with my children. I'm fair as being the president of Madison Towers. It's all about being fair. Now, I've never been a saint. Not all my life, I've never been a saint. But now I'm at this point where I let the law take care of it. I've never been in trouble, and I thank God for that. But I think the laws are here to protect us, and I think they're doing a fine job. I'm not saying this just to get on the board. I've said this all the time, and I say it to policemen when I see them. You guys are doing a fantastic job. If I ever need you, I think you'll come to my rescue. So I think that I would be more qualified. I don't have police experience. I don't. I've never been a councilman, but I work good, and I'm a listener, and I believe in my heart that I can do the right and make the right decision being on this board. And I want to thank each of them for allowing me to come here today to make it this far. I really truly hope that if I'm not elected, that someone that's going to be on that board will make the right decisions. We need someone to make right decisions, not rational decisions, because that's what's happening there. People are making rational decisions. You jump into conclusions. He did this on purpose. It's not about that. It's not about that.
Thank you. Question from the committee members.
Well, thanks for coming today. Really appreciate that and your perspective. What do you think we should be looking for in candidates as far as being able to balance the interest of community and individual citizens and also, being respectful of the difficult job that police officers have? How do you think we should think about balancing that?
I'm glad you asked that question. I think if I was in your position trying to pick someone, I wouldn't pick someone who's been into law enforcement. I don't think that's a good decision. I don't think picking councilmen are a good decision. I think you need to get plain, ordinary people who live in the community, who deals with the community, not troublemakers, not someone who's up here to try to start trouble. That's not what this board is supposed to be about. And I think that rational people who would think logic, who would look at something more than once and not just jump to conclusions, well, I think the police officer guilty. That's not what it's about. And I think if you just get some ordinary people, that I don't know if you're looking at your background or not. That's not all these political. They let them stay where they at. Get some ordinary people, everyday people, in here. Preferably the ones. I'm not trying to be prejudiced, but I don't think anyone who's had someone killed by a law enforcement need to be on the board, because I think if they're placed on the board, they're going to try to do some payback. And right now, we don't need payback. This Nashville, Tennessee needs help. We need help any way we can. So I think if you look at the candidates really closely, not if you know them personally, not if they've been a councilman for 15, 20 years, I really don't think that's going to help us. And police officers, I don't think, even if they retired, I don't think this is the type of board for them. I think it's ordinary citizens who care about the well-being of everybody. I care about the police force. I care about the families who are involved in it. I care about everybody. But I'm here to do the right thing. And I have done the right thing. I've been on this earth 63 years. And I've abided by the law. I've abided by the law. So I think you just need to get some plain, ordinary people. Like I said, push these councilmen out the way. You know, if someone's down there, let them interview. But I think if you get just some regular people that works or retired, you know, to sit here and be on this board, I think that's what you need.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the member? I would like to ask just a quick question about your background about the civil rights. I think that's one of the requirements being the board. So if you would briefly can explain.
I don't have much to add to that because I've never been in the civil rights. I know what's going on during the time that I was born, but I never participated in anything like that. I think, I don't think it's wise for people to jump out and want a protest. You know, I think we ought to, again, go back to leaving it to the laws. You know, I've never protested against anything. I've never saw a need to. I've never gotten off into the civil rights. I do not, the only thing that's important to me is that I have the right to freedom of speech. You know, and that's what I try to do. I express my speech. But I've never been involved in the civil rights. I'm not going to sit up and say I have just because some people think the civil rights is because you may be African American. To me, civil rights means everybody. It includes everybody. So if you're looking for somebody that's got civil rights, not me. I don't have it. I don't have it.
Thank you. I appreciate your honest answer.
Okay.
Is there any other question? Anything you would like to think at just about 1 minute?
Oh, no, I'm fine. I just want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come. And like I say, if I'm not picked, I truly hope that you will pick someone that's going to be very helpful to the board and to the police department.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank
Pointer. I
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys have a blessed evening. Safe travel home.
You too. Safe travels.
To
These are the
proceed,
same
Mark
folder.
Person.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna flip this one too.
Yes, yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to overlap here, so it's closer to you.
You like that?
There you go.
Good evening.
Hello, son.
Shaye Lowe,
Hi,
thank you
yes.
so much for being in here. You had the drill, so you have 10 minutes, so respect your time. Whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Okay, I would like to be on the committee because I feel like it's a civic duty. I would like to participate because I'd like to give back. I believe that an oversight committee could benefit the city, not only for the people, but for the police department to protect them also. Basically, that's it. I'd like to help, and this will be a good way. Any questions?
Question from the committees?
So one of the things that I guess we have to figure out, since we've never picked this board before, is,
Yes, we're new here too.
I mean, we're open to any suggestions about what we should be looking for in board members. And I know one of the things a lot of us have been thinking about is how to balance the ideas of transparency and protecting individual citizens while also not disrespecting the day-to-day work that police officers do. And so, and it's a lot to balance, and I don't know if any of us have it figured out. So any ideas you've got about how to strike that balance and what we should be looking for in candidates, I think would help us.
I don't know. I don't have a legal background, so I think as it being a committee of the citizens, it would be a way to get a fresh approach, new outlook. I have had several ethics classes, but that would go into that. But I have a very analytical mind. I like to break things down piece by piece. That might help. But I just think that the committee might lend a fresh eye, a different viewpoint into situations.
Yeah.
Where two sides.
Right.
Yeah, there's always three truths.
Thank you for that.
Could you tell me a little more about personal background? You mentioned you had an analytical mind. So
Yes,
curious.
I'm born and raised in Nashville. I lived right in East Nashville.
Unicorn.
Yes, I know. Yeah, born and raised. I attended metro schools, and then I went to MTSU for my undergraduate. I'm a computer scientist. I've developed software developer for the state of Tennessee for 21 years. I've continued my education with business and education classes. I like to get back. I did some youth mentoring for a while. That's basically it. I have one son. He's attending ETSU in Johnson City. So,
Great.
Yeah.
Has there been a time that you involved yourself with any sort of civil rights or equity issue that came up in your life and you got engaged in some way?
No, I don't think so. No. I've never really had any dealings with the law or
Yeah.
anything like that outside of traffic tickets.
Good for you.
We can relate to that.
Yes, I've slowed down, but for a while there I was getting them in every state I traveled.
You can't drive 55.
Any other question from the committee members?
I guess I would ask, you mentioned you have a son. Did he also come up through MNPS
Yes.
here in Nashville?
Yes.
Do you, I guess, today, I know I as a mom, seeing what I sometimes feel is kind of the disparity of some officers in their treatment of youth. Do you have anything kind of to bring to that as kind of a mom, and how you've kind of tried to help him navigate that? Or, I mean, does that sort of inform your desire to participate?
Yeah, well, he has been pulled over again. He got pulled over in Brentwood once, and they searched his car. He was with a couple of friends, but he said that there were 4 people in the car. He said 4 police cars showed up for each one of them. They made them get out and sit on the side, the street while he searched the car. He had a mask where he had gone go-karting when we were in Miami, and it was in his trunk, and they wanted to know where that came from. He said that they were as polite as I guess could be in that situation, and they let him go, but that he has, and he was 18 at the time. So, yeah.
Any other question from the committee members?
No.
Thank Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Be safe.
Always.
This has the petition. That's what I've discovered.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that right?
This is very helpful.
Yeah, that's kind of the
information
background.
Professionally, and some of the questions as well, so. I don't know, if I have a laptop. if
I
you
do have a laptop, though.
Okay, so Bob's looking at
I'll
the.
look
From
at
what
them
they
again
emailed
after.
us, is that what you're looking at? Or is it on the link?
It's
on
in
the link.
the
SharePoint.
Yeah, I'll look at
Oh,
it
yeah,
after.
Yeah, SharePoint,
forgot about that.
and then
You guys-
home, and you will have all the questionnaires.
Re-email that to you if you want to call me.
Yeah, if we do, just so pop it at the top of my inbox.
No, I looked at it before. I like to look at people during things like this and then look at the paper later. It's just my way of doing things. I am gonna, so that it doesn't look like I'll be
Step back for
yeah.
your.
That's right.
I'll do this.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
I just said send.
Hello, how are you?
Mr. Williams.
Right here?
Yes. Please
Thank you.
seat, please. So everybody has 10 minutes. I don't want to waste your 10 minutes, so if you would like to proceed.
Okay. So I just need to respond to these questions here.
Yes.
Okay, I was interested in serving on the Community Oversight Board because I feel that it's going to be a very effective tool in the community to help bridge the gap between the community and the Metropolitan Police Department. I also feel that the committee could be a vehicle to improve relationships between the community and the police department, as I said. I'm retired from Meharry Medical College, where I have over 40 years of management experience. I was assistant vice president there, and during my tenure, I think I acquired the necessary skills to make me an effective board member. Okay. I think I have attained the temperament, the wisdom, and the knowledge to be effective. And I think that the board can be configured if the right individuals are on it who have will come in with an open mind, with no preconceived ideas about the police department or the community, and to make this an effective program. I'll go to number 2 now. With regard to civil rights and equity, I'm a lifelong resident of Nashville, and I was privy to the sit-ins in the 60s that occurred here. I can remember when the students from the local universities marched downtown with the sit-ins. I can also remember when the attorney for those students, his name was Z. Alexander Luby, his home was bombed on Meharry Boulevard. I think that occurred when I was about 15 years old. And I can remember also when the students marched in front of this very building, and they confronted the then mayor, Ben West, and I believe Diane Nash asked him a question: did he recommend that the lunch counters be desegregated? And with a simple answer, he said yes. And with that one word, those counters were desegregated within 2 weeks' time. And I think what Mayor West did, it laid the groundwork for this city to become what it is today, a progressive city, where a diverse city, and I think that was a very important time in our community. Number 3, I have no background in law enforcement. I've never had a negative encounter with the police department. I never have. But I was thinking, I was saying that if I'm selected for this board, I would once again become a student, because it would be incumbent upon me to look at the police policies. I mean, learn how they function, okay? Because if an incident does occur, since I mentioned earlier, I have no preconceived ideas. And being in management for so many years, my first question would be, what is the policy? When you have policies outlined, and if that policy is followed, then that shouldn't be any question, I don't think. Now, but on the other hand, I think it would be incumbent upon that committee also, if they feel that the policy might need some tweaking or modification, they should get with the appropriate individual, Chief Anderson, the FOPO, whoever, and say, let's look at this policy and let's review it. Let's see if we can make it work better for the community. Because ultimately, the goal should be that we have a valuable community that's going to benefit all of these citizens here, and we want to maintain a semblance of decency for everyone. And that's my presentation, and I appreciate you all's time, letting me come in and chat with you for a minute. And I appreciate your consideration.
I appreciate you sharing your experience, and it's so invaluable to hear from the person who lived through those eras.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll entertain the question
Any
from
questions?
the committee.
I do. Well, with your multiple decades experience living in Nashville, so we're going to have to pick the board. And one of the things I think I'd love to hear about from you is what's your sense of, over those 40, 50 years or whatever it's been, how would you describe the relationship between the police and the community now compared to how it's been through those decades?
Well, it's just a different era. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, when you look back at the '60s, it was just a different time, and police reacted differently in those situations because there were certain laws which might have been unfair that they had to enforce. But since we've transitioned to this era now, I mean, this is just a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And I think what's going on now, I'm proud of this city. I really am. I can give you another incident. I can remember back in 1968, my neighbor, who was a police officer here in Nashville, he was murdered along with another police officer. His name was Thomas Johnson, by some Tennessee State University students. They ambushed him. And I can remember the tension that exacerbated during that period in this city, and that has stuck with me for quite a while. And I would hate to see that happen again. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the motivating factors for me to get on the board, because I think the role of the COB could ease tension in a situation if something like that occurred. And so hopefully I answered your question.
You did. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other question from the committee?
You mentioned you have a lot of experience in setting or adjusting policy.
Yes.
And so obviously this board is going to be reviewing policies that it may not have made, obviously from the department. So kind of walk us through a little bit what your thought process is when you're looking at a policy and trying to decide if it's the correct policy or if it needs some adjustments.
Okay, well, actually, I've written, I've had to write policies during my tenure at Meharry Medical College. So actually, you've got to look at the situation, first of all. And you've got to look at who this policy is going to impact. And you've got to make the policy to make sure that it's all inclusive and it's going to result in fairness to the individual that is going to impact. And so basically that's it. I mean, you know, you got to look at the situation and say, what steps need to be taken to improve this situation, because that's what policies are for, to improve situation, and some people say to minimize chaos. And so that's the approach that I would take. Okay?
Would you
Any
like to
other
say
question?
anything in a conclusion?
Well, I certainly appreciate your time and hopefully and your consideration, and I would love to serve on the board because I feel that I would be an asset. And I've done a lot of things in this community, and I felt that since I'm retired, I have the time to do some additional things other than walk at Green Hills every day and work in my church every now and then. But
I'm a mall walker. You might see my dad over there
I
sometimes.
walk at Green Hills Mall 4 mornings a week.
There's a big crew over there. Making
Yeah,
money.
that's it. That's it. Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Well,
for
thank you
filling
all
in.
so much
Appreciate
here.
your time.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you.
Thanks.
So we just hit the enter.
Oh, you guys are doing it. So if you want to change it, you just hit the,
Oh,
that button right there. Yeah, but you guys have got
We
it.
can change
got
it.
it.
We can change it.
So
Yeah.
that's the one.
That's the right arrow.
Yeah, got it. It's Betty Diane Lee Smith. I guess 10 minutes is a quite long time. So far, we don't have to cut any 10 minutes. Good evening.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Betty Diane Lee Smith. Thank you
A
for
lot of
being
names.
here. Yes.
I go by Diane, if that matters.
Okay. Thank you.
That makes it easy. So Diane, and you got 10 minutes, and so respect your time. I will not talk too much, so whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Okay. These are the questions I've got on email.
Yes, there's 3
So-
questions.
Yes. I'm not sure if my role is to sell you on why I'm a good candidate or whether it's just to elaborate a little more on these questions. But I do want to thank you for the time. It may not be part of the way you want to spend your week, but there's a lot of candidates, so glad you're here. As far as the first question, I think my interest is based on that I really, really want our city to be better and different. I think we have a good city. I think that it's an opportunity for us to make our own message rather than have the outlying world define us for ourselves. My background is in nursing. I started out at the lowest level, a diploma graduate, and went on to get my master's, and I've been a nurse practitioner, although that certification has lapsed. Over the course of my career, I've done a variety of things, but in my job, I've had, as I'm sure many of you have, opportunity to do a number of personality tests, skills assessments, those kind of things. So the skills that kind of come up in a variety of ways, but, you know, different words, kind of same thing, are that I'm a problem solver. I believe in strongly, and I guess it's a guiding principle for me, is connectedness, which has somewhat of a spiritual component. I believe that we're more alike than we are different, and so I find myself looking for the common ground among people, and I love to talk to somebody long enough to find a connection. That said, I'm an introvert, and I am exhausted by having to spend a lot of time just talking. I'd much rather be quiet with a book or thinking. The other things that are a part of my skills, I think, are input, which if you do that Strength Finders, it's kind of a combination of seeking information but wanting to be a part of the solution and give input. And then finally, intellection, which I worked in academics for a while, and it's just loving to learn and seeking to, I like to think, I like to get better. As far as my management style, I'm more of a nurturing, analytical person, so that's a fine balance. Kind of lean one way of being objective and the other way of being very subjective, but I lean more toward the objective part, which I think is a part of nursing. So I think all of those skills help me to be a good candidate. Because our city has grown so much in the last 5 to 10 years, I think that we are changing quickly and we need to be ahead of the change. We need to be anticipating challenges and kind of finding solutions and framework before we have to deal with a problem on the back end. And I hope that the things that have led to the interest in having this committee don't continue to happen, that we find solutions and communication that helps this board to eventually be obsolete and not be necessary, that we can find structures and ways to be proactive in involving our citizens and the police department to be partners rather than opposition. So that would be my long-term goal. I want to serve because I think I'm a good listener, I think I'm a problem solver, and I'm going to be an advocate for people whose voices are not heard. And that's kind of always been, I think, the way I've behaved in life. As far as my background with civil rights, you'll probably have to Google this and you won't find a lot, but as you can look at me, or if you get my resume, you'll know that I'm older. I grew up as a child of the 60s, so I grew up hearing the news of civil rights marches and protests and sit-ins and demonstrations, and I lived in the country, so I wasn't involved in that, and I probably wouldn't have been involved in that as the person I was then, because I was much more quiet. But I grew up in a town in East Tennessee that was uniquely protected from that race kind of crisis. My little town had a exclusively, I would guess, but certainly predominantly black college that was founded and started in my town in the 1880s after the Civil War, started by the Presbyterian Church. And that college evolved over time, but stayed active until the mid-50s. After it closed, it was then used by the county as the elementary and high school for the black students in the county. And even though the county was fairly broad geographically, the majority of the black students were in the little town. So they all went to school there. Well, fast forward about 8 or 9 years, and the county didn't have enough money to maintain 2 separate school systems. So they made the decision to merge the school systems and integrate for financial reasons. And amazingly enough, we did not have any challenges with that. I'm sure there were people that weren't happy, but the discord and the violence never occurred in our little town. So by the time I got to high school, which was a few years after that, it's just what we did. We all were together, and that's the way it was, and no issues. So I never felt like, it was just a way of life for everybody to be together and work together. And then, currently, I participate in a collaborative group between 2 United Methodist churches. We are, 3 minutes. It's a predominantly white church and a predominantly African American church, and back in 2016, both churches expressed an interest to do something about the amount of violence, shootings, police shootings, people shooting police. It was after 2015. There were lots of things that happened that year. So we joined together and began to study a book, and the book was called, which I don't understand why we picked that topic, but it was fine. It was The Death of White Christian, or the death of white Christianity in America. And I always wondered, well, why would that matter to a black church? But what it allowed us to do is kind of have an icebreaker conversation, because it talked about the changing demographics of the country as a whole and the changing, the religious slant, denominational slant of the population, so that when you overlay the two, it's white and Christianity is shrinking. So it was a good group, but it built a bond, and we became active in doing things in the community. So we've sponsored a couple of movie nights, discussion groups around racism, systemic racism, kind of how it embeds everything. And we have done some educational things to try to raise awareness for young people and their encounters with police. And out of that group, I've certainly learned a lot just about the kind of what I would say systemic racism that exists. Another thing that I've done that I think talks about equity is I'm a nurse, and last part of my career I spent fighting insurance companies and advocating for patients. So I've helped people find health care through the marketplace or through Medicare.gov. And what I've found in doing that, because the friends I've helped are varied, that if they tend to be on what I would say the marginalized population, the resources and the options they have are less, and the premiums are higher. And so to me, that's a bias from something. And finally, as far as my personal experience, I don't have any criminal background that I know of. I've never been arrested. I've been to court to change my name. That's why I have so many. But other than that, I've had a parking ticket and a traffic violation. But other than that, I've not been. I don't have personal history. But I do have friends, especially from my time in Knoxville in the emergency room, who worked in the Knox County Police Department, and I know what their lives were like, and I know the things they encountered. And I now have friends that have been in the system that are out of jail, but I can just hear them talk and hear how their lives were impacted by, I would say, three things: inability to make good decisions, poverty, and lack of education. And they're out of the system and trying to be on a good path. But it's a fine balance between, and sadly I think that once you're, quote, have been in the system, it's hard to get out and stay out. My one final point is that I'm not supported by any group, and I was encouraged by people in my shared group with the Methodist Church to apply, but they're not sponsoring me because it's a church group. So I think I come with independence, and I come with a challenging mindset, and I always am one of the people that's going to ask one more question. So I'm going to look for the truth and the best solution.
I really appreciate your candid answer and using 10 minutes wisely.
Yeah.
Did I do it?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Ms. Diane.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I guess we'll hear something after all the interviews are done, right? Is that the way it works?
Sometime before the
In time to know if we're supposed to show up on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next one, please. Mr. Rosevelt Noble.
Suitable. Russ Bully's asking some Russ Bully type questions in there. Very
Well, great, we are on schedule. Thank you, Mr. Noble, for coming.
Hello, Mr.
Appreciate
Noble.
it. You know the drill, you have 10 minutes.
Yes.
And please proceed.
All right. My interest in serving on the board and the reasons that I wish to serve. First and foremost, I think I treat it almost as a civic duty. I think when very much akin to voting. I think when you have expertise and you've worked in various capacities, be it the ACLU or research or taught courses around the matter, I think it's something that I feel compelled to get back in that capacity. And for me, I've taught specifically about matters of policing. We've dealt with matters of policing in my work with the ACLU. And so I think I have the background to kind of lend itself to that. With regards to question 2, describe my background and familiarity with civil rights issues and equity. Again, I have a publication, my dissertation, which actually was turned into a book. During that, I spent the better part of about 2.5 years basically researching the legal aspects of our criminal justice system. A part of me actually pondered going to law school, coming out of that experience, but studying everything from the policing, which is very much the front entry line point of our criminal justice system, all the way through corrections, and all of the judge and the different phases that they control, the jury, the different phases they control, the prosecutor and all that. So being able to see the big picture, but also appreciate individually the role that each of them collectively play in what we may consider to be our issues with mass incarceration. But it started with the policing, and so I spent a great deal of time basically understanding everything about policing, from discretionary power to the thresholds for probable cause and things of that nature. So I spent time doing that in my own research capacity. Since 2015 is when I started with the ACLU, and that's been quite an experience, because getting to understand the delicate balance between national, state, or local security rather, and kind of individual rights and liberties and so forth. We've talked about everything there, from bail reform to police accountability with regards to body cameras and initiatives that Hetty Weinberg, who's our executive director, has talked. We've taken on a number of different issues pertaining to that. Asset forfeiture and things of that nature, which obviously involve the police as well. So there's been a number of topics that we've talked about. And those are the ones that deal more exclusively with the police. But we've taken on other issues that are broader criminal justice issues as well. Everything surrounding juvenile detention and how and where we house people and things of that nature. So I think that's another area of my background that we kind of lend itself to showing that I understand civil rights and equity issues. I've worked as a consultant for a number of years on different projects. One of the most recent ones was for the Federal Public Defender's Office, analyzing racial bias in capital punishment cases out of Shelby County, specifically as it pertained to peremptory strikes in the jury process of capital punishment cases. So most of my research is centered around elements or aspects of bias in some aspect of the criminal justice system. So I think that's another one that lends itself to question 2. Question 3. Describe my background, experiences, or familiarities with the justice system and policy, policing practices, rather. I think this has kind of been morphed in with some of the other ones, in that I would kind of go back again to the courses that I've taught, the research that I've done, some of the community involvements and engagements. One that I didn't mention also was currently served, and this is one of my most recent additions of appointments. Vanderbilt started its own kind of similar oversight board, and I was recently appointed to, it's called CORE, Community-Oriented Results and Expectations. And so I've served on that board, and it's been fairly, I guess, interesting and eye-opening to kind of see that aspect of the university. I hadn't been at Vanderbilt for a very long time, and I've seen just about every other aspect of it, but being on that board and seeing everything and understanding how everything that they do, it's kind of given me a pretty unique perspective. I've already been making contributions and suggestions for things that I think they can improve, kind of thing. So, yeah, I think that is most of that. I don't know if that was other time to answer any other questions, but.
Certainly, we still have 6 minutes, so if I can entertain a question from the
I would love to ask a couple questions. Your application's very impressive. You obviously have a lot of relevant experience. One thing that wasn't clear necessarily is how long have you been in Nashville?
Okay. I was in Nashville from 1994 to 2014.
Okay.
Then I left Nashville because my wife went to residency at the University of Tennessee, Memphis for 3 years. And so from 2014 to 2017, we were in Memphis. And I commuted back and forth from Nashville to Memphis to Nashville, because I still taught at Vanderbilt that whole time. And then we came back in June of 2017, permanently back to Nashville.
Great, thank you. 'Cause I was with you having been at this address for a year and a half. I was wondering about that. And then I guess so we're brand new to this. First day. We're an hour in, and you professionally look at these issues. Any advice for us about how we should be balancing the perspectives of transparency, looking out for the rights of individual citizens, and being fair to police officers also?
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where diversity of like perspective and background is important. I think you would do a huge disservice if everybody that was on this committee was a lawyer, an attorney, for example. I think you want to have a multitude of voices and angles and perspective at which people come at this from. I think just even, for example, in my first meeting at the Vanderbilt board, I had recently had an experience with a student who was dealing with a pretty serious issue, and the student had been contacted by an outside law enforcement agency, and basically resulted in the student almost taking their life. And it highlighted a huge communication gap between VUPD and Metro. And so we're in a process of instituting some policy changes, which that's been there forever. But when I came on board and my level of interaction with the students, I see it from a different perspective versus when you have people that only sit at a provost level and above, they're used to dealing with their peers up here and they never get down to where the rubber meets the road, the students. So you want to have a multitude of perspectives to kind of point out flaws in the system, point out inefficiencies, point out areas where you can improve. So I think that would be one big suggestion that I would make. Two, I think with regards to the issues and taking them on, there's a certain amount of passion that you want people to have for this work, but to me it's like there's the extremes almost. And when I think about the jury selection process and how we have things like peremptory strikes for a reason, because in an ideal situation with peremptory strikes, the prosecutor and the defense attorney, they should use their peremptory strikes to remove those folks that are on either extreme, and what we're left with are people that are in the middle who can objectively look at, weigh the evidence, and make determinations versus the guy who showed up with the capital punishment sucks t-shirt on is clearly not for the death penalty versus the guy who's way too eager to be on this potential capital punishment case. We kind of want to move that person too, and we want to have those people that are kind of in the middle and have shown that they can be somewhat objective and basically make decisions based on the evidence that's presented. So those would probably be two of my recommendations.
Thank you.
Any other question from the committee? Do you have anything you would like to say as a conclusion?
No, I just think this is a phenomenal opportunity, and as busy as I am at Vanderbilt. If you have my CV, you can see that I'm the assistant dean of students. I'm the faculty head of house. I'm a residential faculty, means I live in a dorm with 186 freshman students. I'm the director of our Black Cultural Center, and I teach a class. I teach tomorrow morning from 9 to 11:40, but I think this is very important, and this is one of those things that, again, I treat it akin to a civic duty, in that if you have the expertise and you have the background that can be of value, can be of service to your city, to your community, you have a responsibility to kind of engage in that. And so for me, that's how I treat this, and the way I operate is I heavily believe in prioritizing, and this would be a huge priority for me, and I would take it as an esteemed honor to be a part of it, so thank you.
I really
Thanks very
appreciate it,
much.
Mr. Noble.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Excuse my sniffles and coughs and stuff. I'm not supposedly contagious
you
unless
don't cough at me, I'm good.
I won't kiss anybody.
Yeah, thank you all being in here, really appreciate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mr. Sweeney.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm doing great, how about you?
I'm very well.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, so let's proceed whenever you're ready.
Sure, I'm ready. You know, we live in a very contentious time, and a time when people don't talk to each other, a lot of people talk at each other, and not a lot of listening going on. And this is a time that it's very, very important in this new board, where the city has said that they would like some oversight to the police, for people to get together and to listen and to work together. I have a background in criminal law, where I was originally a criminal defense attorney at the beginning. I eventually became a judge, and as a judge, I had criminal jurisdiction for a time period. So I've been involved in those types of issues. As on the civil side, most of my practice in state court has been in chancery. So that's dealt with equity issues and equity principles. And then in federal court, a good part of what I did was civil rights cases. And I've also handled a post-conviction death penalty case that dealt with similar issues, not the same issues, but similar issues. So I've dealt with a lot of difficult and contentious issues throughout my career. I've been involved in policy issues that I think would be useful background for sitting on the board. I've helped to develop the rules of juvenile procedure for the state. I've helped to draft the rules of professional conduct for lawyer practice in the state. So I've been in those kind of public policy discussions and developing of policy. And I think that all of that, together with the fact that I've served on various boards in law-related matters, including having chaired the board of the National Judicial College that trains judges throughout the United States. And I attended the Judicial College when I was a judge here. So, you know, I think all of that puts me in a good position to work on a board such as this, to deal with contentious issues. As a judge and as a mediator, it's been my role to identify issues and to work to help to resolve them. And those kind of talents and experiences, I think, would be very, very useful here on the board. So I'm interested because I have the background, because I think this is a very, very important decision that the city has made to set up this board, and they're looking for input from outside of the police department regarding policing and policing practices. And I think that if it's approached in a respectful way, respectful to everyone who is involved in the process and all the constituencies that are involved in the process, and that it's based upon people listening to each other and taking in information and considering the information, and it's kind of a fact-based, knowledge-based sort of oversight and input, that it can be very, very useful to the city. And I think from my background and that standpoint, that it's a good fit. And I'd had the opportunity to serve, and I'd like to serve.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm curious, in your time in the courtroom, if you've found that when police officers are questioned, as opposed to any other citizen that's questioned, did you find them to be more or the same trustworthy in regard to their ability to answer the questions?
There's no greater credibility, I think, as a whole that gets assigned to them, and jurors are specifically told that there's no greater credibility that's been given to a police officer than any other witness. So I think they stand on their merits, stand on the same grounds and conditions under which any witness is testifying to consider.
Madam Chair. So, Mr. Sweeney, you've got a ton of great qualifications going back a couple decades. But one thing that's hard to get through just the words on the paper is sort of a lower to the ground, less analytical framework experience sort of thing into the like why does this matter, and why does it matter to individual rights? Why does it matter to police officers that are involved? And I wonder if you could just speak to that. Just the motivation for being involved at an individual level.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, at least to me, it's very important to the community, and I've been involved in other community things at that level, room in the inn, spending the night, with homeless people in the inns itself. This policing issue is an issue where, just from watching TV and listening to the paper, you see all the people that it affects, and you see how it affects them every day. It's a very living situation where there are very, very strongly held opinions and very great concerns from all sides involved. And I think it's something that if done well, it's something that can make a big difference to the community. And it can promote respect and promote professionalism and promote consistency of practices and such. And if it's not done in a respectful and professional way, it can make everything far worse. And so I'm committed to the process of being involved at the level of understanding and listening, and then working to address and to evaluate. And I think on that very granular level, that's something that impacts everybody who's involved. And I think everybody has a legitimate concern as to how this board's going to function.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, you shared from a policy perspective that you had worked on the rules of juvenile procedure. So as I think about kind of policy and procedure and somewhat the evolution of that, right, kind of our understanding of developmental milestones for youth and kind of how maybe we used to treat youth through the system and now. And so can you kind of speak to in a group like a board, I think, and many of the folks with whom we've spoken have highlighted how it's important to have folks of different professions and different perspectives and ages and so on and so forth. But can you speak to, just in your kind of professional area and from a policy perspective, how you kind of make certain to, I guess, maybe not be too hard and fast, how you see policy and procedure evolving based on, knowledge that we are gaining over time?
Absolutely. Input is very, very important. And you have to have a diverse group to start with, and meaning diverse can mean different things to different groups. So when you're talking about juvenile procedures, it can mean just different perspectives, from a youth position, from a governmental authority position, from a social work position, things like that. And so when we developed those rules, we had a decent cross-section and had different ages and groups and of course race and gender representation. If you don't have a good mix to start with, you're not getting complete information. And most people live within a relatively small circle, wherever they are, and whatever it is, and their points of reference tend to be from that small circle. And so it's very, very important that you get input. When we did these rules, if I recall correctly, we also had outside advisors who gave us kind of best practices We had people who worked with processes that were not as formalized as these rules. This was the first set of real rules where people came in and shared their experiences and said, you guys are talking about doing it this way. This didn't work well when we did it down in Shelby County, and here's why it didn't work. Okay. Or other people would say, well, it worked real well in a small setting, when we were doing it over here in Dixon, but it wasn't something, that you could bring up to a broader level and expand. So the input is really, really important. And, we had people with very, very strongly held views that were diametrically opposed. So if I recall right, at that point, on one extreme was Andy Shukoff, who eventually became the juvenile court judge here. And he had views on one side, and we had a judge who had criminal jurisdiction whose views couldn't have been more different than his. And we went through that process for a good year, and before we could come up with something that was workable and useful. And eventually, with this very, very diverse group and different views and all like that, we were able to come to a consensus of what we thought would be workable. Maybe everybody didn't think that it was great in one area or another, but everybody thought it was a vast improvement over what we had before, and we thought it would be workable.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, they didn't work in any breaks. You kind of just can come in. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Kurtis Herron.
How y'all doing tonight?
Hi there.
Great. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You have 10 minutes. Please proceed.
Okay. Well, I guess the three questions that was on the thing is, why am I interested? And I know with 10 minutes we don't have much time, so in a nutshell, there's three reasons. Number one, I work for the state, and I've been with the fiscal department for about 12 years, so I'm really interested, where's that $1.5 million going to go? Number two, I've always been involved in community service, one way or another, with Special Olympics or the Bridge Ministry, community outreach, or mission outreach with the church, TSSAA refereeing, and you'll hear me talk a lot about that because that's a big part of my life. And then, of course, that comes to the third part, which is fairness. And being a referee, that is our sole thing. You know, our number one is safety, number two is fairness, and number three is awarding the points. So, and as a referee, everything that I do is subject to fairness. If I post something on Facebook and a coach sees it and that, it's not fair, it's not true, it's not whatever, then that jeopardizes my reputation as a referee. And likewise, if I do something on the mat that is not fair or just or anything, then it jeopardizes my whole character as a person. So as a referee, it's very important, to be fair. The other one was the civil rights. I will say that I'm more, being a referee, I am more stronger with the policing side of it. But being with refereeing, I go to the middle schools, the inner city schools and everything, and I talk to these coaches and these wrestlers, and I hear their stories. In fact, I had Overton the other night, and I was asking where one of the kids was, and the coach was like, Kurt, he's his breadwinner now. His dad was taken off to prison, and he's the breadwinner of the family. And it's just sad that a 16-year-old kid has to quit wrestling to go be the breadwinner of that family. So what I would like to see the board do, and I don't know if it's out of the realm, is go educate these kids and somehow get them to better their life. They just don't need to be that kind of living. And I work for Centerplate, which is the Sounds Food this year. And a lot of inner city people work there side by side with me, and I got to know them very well. And some of their issues and everything, and it was very enlightening because I didn't grow up in that kind of environment, and it was very, very enlightening. And of course, the policing policy, I work at the Tennessee Tower, so safety is on the 23rd floor, Homeland Security is on the 27th floor. I run into these people every day. I run into the police officers at the wrestling tournaments and the sounds, and so once again, as a referee, I'm stronger with that part of it. I mean, it's just the truth of the matter. So, any questions for me?
Any question from the committee?
Not for me, thank you.
I could go on and on and on about situations that I've had to handle. I don't know what you guys are looking for.
Well, we want to hear what's important to you in regard to having a reference. So if you've got a situation or a story to tell, we're here to hear it.
Well, I mean, whenever you step on the mat as a referee, you're in the middle of the battle. And, you know, you're like last night I was at Springfield High School, and two of the teenage kids on there filled up with testosterone, girlfriends are in the stand, family, you know, they got to show off, and things started to get out of hand, and once again I had to step in, and, you know, they wanted to wrestle, and I'm like, no, we're going to settle down, we're going to calm down till I feel like we're ready to wrestle. We took about 30 seconds or so. I saw they were calmed down. We went back to wrestling, everything was fine. On the other hand, I have had to throw kids out because I couldn't get in there in time. They just flared up. I've had to step in, carry one of them over to his coach. Coach, he's done tonight. We're gonna move on. I've had to handle parents. I've had to, I mean, I had to separate two mothers the other night because one of the kids slammed her son and the two mothers got into it. So I had to go separate them. Unfortunately, the coaches backed me up and we went on. But, you know, we have to make those split-second decisions just like police officers do, you know. Now, the difference with me is the kid going to get the points or not, where a life is not in danger where I'm at, you know. And so it is a similar thing, but it's very different, very different. And as a referee, you have to know those rules. And you have to be able to enforce them upon the situation and every situation is different, you know. So, but you have to, you know, and I've been to the TSSAA office because I've not handled certain things the way they thought I should have handled it. So, you know, it's just, but once again, lives aren't in danger where I'm at. So it is a whole different aspect with that. One of the questions on there was, how do you handle other people? Well, I was an officer at one point, and, you know, we would go in, if we had a situation we had to suspend and eventually eliminate one of the referees that was one of our best referees for some conduct that he did. Once again, that Facebook thing can come back and haunt you. And some things happened, and we just had to vote, and some stuck up for him, some didn't. When the truth all came out, we made our vote and we went on with it. So, you know, I'll speak my piece, I say my thing, I'll take my vote, and whatever the result is, you just move on with it. So.
I'm sorry. No, I'm curious because I know that all of us are struggling with making sure that we do an equitable evaluation of all the candidates, right? So I'm wondering if you've had a chance to kind of look through other people that have applied, and if there's a particular name that stood out to you that you thought, you know, whether I make it or not, I hope they do. Did you see any?
To be honest, no, I didn't. This is my busy time of the year. Mm-hmm. We've got this week and next week, and I've been gone every night. You know, and then tournaments on Saturday, and then we'll start our postseason, so it'll just be weekend stuff then. Now, don't let that interfere, because if I was to get on this board and we had to have a meeting, you know, obviously this would come first. But anyway, Yeah, I just haven't looked through the names. I just didn't.
Just curious.
Yeah.
I just started, I just had that thought, and so you're the first person I've asked, but
Yeah.
I'll ask everyone else from now on.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
just
just
really,
curious about that.
really hadn't. And I, saw a few people out there. I'm like, well, that'd probably be a good person to be on there. Yeah. I don't know.
Mr. Herron, you mentioned earlier that you were an officer, and just for clarity, I want that's for the TSSAA.
Right, I was a treasurer. I was the treasurer for the.
officer of
Yeah,
that
that's where the
organization.
finance part of it comes. I was the
Understood.
treasurer for.
Right, no, I just wanted for clarity's sake. You had mentioned social media and the importance of the appearance of fairness in the role that you have as a referee. You mentioned your personal account. You also have a Facebook account called Run for God. Can you share what that is, please?
I started 5 years ago. I started a little. We don't have Sunday school at our church. We have what we call small groups or community groups. And so I started this running group because there was a lot of runners in the church. And so for the first year, I was just writing my own devotions and stuff so that we had something to discuss, and then we'd go run. Well, my pastor got me hooked onto this thing that's based out of Dalton, Georgia, that's called Run for God. And it's a nationwide thing. And so they write the devotions and send it to us. And so that's kind of what it is. And I hate to say this, but since wrestling started, I haven't done anything with that one.
Well, I appreciate sharing that.
Haven't
The
done
10 minutes
anything
goes
with
very quickly, so really appreciate your coming in here.
All right, so we're done?
Thank you.
Well, thank
Mr. Helm,
you,
thank you
and
so
good luck
much.
in getting it right. Thank you.
Next person, please. Thank you.
We have one more minute. I was going to ask him about his comment that it's only fair that civilians should go to classes on how to handle the police,
Yeah, is that
which seems.
Steve, I don't know why back then.
Yes.
That was in his application?
Yeah. It's,
It's
I
good.
think in this one, number 34.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Miss Jaclyn, Dustin, good.
Evening.
Appreciate you being here whenever you're ready.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. And everybody.
Yes. 10 minutes is yours. Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, so my interest.
Sorry.
My interest. I would have to say the biggest reason for me wanting to serve is just to be a part of the growth of the city. I've been here for 10 years now, and I think it's really exciting to see the changes, some good, some bad. But my neighborhood, I live on the west side of Nashville. I've seen, there's houses burnt down from arson, and there's even a triple homicide a couple houses down from me. I've seen those houses just turn into, or they put up new houses with bicycles and strollers. I've seen just a neighborhood kind of face that adversity and make things better. So I think that this board, kind of fought some challenges to even get on the ballot and everything, but the community thought it was something that was necessary, and I think being on that board would be really exciting, especially from the ground up. I'm from Chicago, and I, always say when I'm there that New York City, I'm glad New York did it first, because we made alleys, and we didn't build up to the water so we can, enjoy the skyline and not have trash in the streets. So we get to see from the 150, 200 other cities, I don't know, but there's a lot of other major cities that have these boards. We can learn from them, so I think that's pretty cool as well. And kind of try and pick and choose things that have been working. I know by just doing all these interviews with all this wide variety of people and not just being internal is huge. I think it's great. There's a good budget, so I do find that encouraging for this board. Which is why I would I know it's going to be challenging, but I think it would be cool to have a seat on that board, because I think our effectiveness could, be more on the kind of like the Knoxville side. I know Knoxville's doing pretty well, and Memphis has had a lot of challenges with this kind of board. So I just think that we have to be like at the beginning stages of it would be very exciting. And also, I don't have a huge, I guess, civil rights or really no criminal justice background, but in Chicago I was an ELL teacher, so I basically fluent in Spanish and have learned to talk to people with English not being their first language. Also here I'm in a gospel choir for the last 9 years. We go to the prisons and the rescue mission and the Hope Center and stuff, so I've dealt with all these people and heard all their stories. I'd like to be a voice for some of these people that either, with the language barrier or sometimes with domestic violence, you have trouble talking, to police or whatever kind of challenges that some of these people face and the voices that are not heard. I'd like to be able to be one of those people to speak for them, because I know this is supposed to be an independent board where we could kind of just let the community in, talk to us. We can help them, and I think also then would probably help the police force that don't maybe have all the time or resources, energy to listen to all these complaints or to, whatever we'd be able to do for them. So we could save them time and then give the community just a little more peace of mind, and then be more of kind of like a bridge that I think is kind of necessary between the community and the police force. I think we could kind of strengthen that relationship, try and do some outreach with the community, and try and once the board knows more about the policies and stuff, because I don't know a whole lot about police policy right now, but once I was informed with the training and stuff that you gave us, maybe, let the community know more about the policies. And then also if we just got a ton of complaints, like there's patterns of complaints from the community, we could maybe bring these to the police force and help strengthen that force by saying, hey, this is just consistently happening. Should there maybe be some sort of policy change? Is there some way that we can prove it? Just because it was in a book from the Academy in 1980 doesn't mean that in 2019 that maybe should, be the only way, So just be open to however we can help out them both, I think. As far as, like I said, civil rights, let me just skip to 3. I really don't have any criminal justice background. Civil rights, I guess I've had a little more. I could say I was raised by a feminist for sure. She was Title IX beginner. She was the first woman, or on the first women's basketball team for her university. So I've been
University women.
Well, there's Northeastern. There's
Okay.
nothing big.
No.
She wore skirts. There were 6 of them.
It's okay. I played half court. So
Okay,
I know
yeah,
that.
okay, so, yeah, she couldn't cross that,
I'm there.
whatever it was.
Yep.
But I'm just saying, I've been raised by these kind of women, not necessarily like a modern day feminist, but definitely an equalist, if that's a word. I've seen a lot of my friends go through the LGBTQ movement. In my lifetime, in my adult lifetime, that's the most I've really seen change. And I've actually been a part of a lot of that. My roommate, before I moved down here and got married, is gay, and she had to go through the whole, when finally a civil union happened, and then, some of my friends that had a civil union had kids, then the other parent had to adopt the kid, because if they went to another state or whatever that didn't have that union, they had no rights on their own child, and then they finally get married, and then, then they obviously can't have kids together, and then they go through IVF. They pay $18,000 for a child, where my sister went through IVF, but she can claim infertility, whereas, my gay friends can't, and so, I've been, just a supporter of a lot of that struggle, and my band has played for a lot of these, gay pride stuff, however I can help in that situation. I've definitely been a part of whatever I can. And then as far as I mean, that's about all I can think of for that, but I'm definitely into equal rights, however I can be a part of that. And then, like I said, I don't know, criminal justice. The most I've delved into with that, I don't really have any friends or family actually that are in that background, bless the hearts of the people that do. But the furthest I've gone to is when some of these, I guess, videos, like police brutality or, whatever, excessive force, went, viral when you finally just, oh, sorry, I'm on Moms Demand Action too. That's civil rights because that's for children and gun rights, right? Okay, sorry. But yeah, so with those, I think like many other citizens probably were just like, what are police allowed to do that? Is that correct? Was that the right thing for them to do? Shoot them in the back, shoot them 17-year-old like 16 times, whatever it might be. So I definitely, looked into, I guess the aggressive force, that was, that's in the handbook. But I guess when it comes down to it, could that be changed? Possibly. But also, can I imagine being in uniform, having to make that split decision? Definitely not. But it's the tricky part is that it's kind of gray, even though it could be black and white in a book. It's all up to the police discretion, from what I'm gathering, which is why it's so hard to, I guess, figure all this stuff out. But
we appreciate you sharing your passion
Oh,
and so forth.
okay.
Yes, very good. Very
Oh,
good.
that was it.
Thank you so much, Ms.
I got most of it. Okay, thank you all so much.
Okay.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Next, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Mr. Haag.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for being here. Got 10 minutes, and you know the drill. Please proceed.
My interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board, I'm a native Nashvilleian. I was born and raised in Goulitsville. Went away for a few years for the Marines, came home. I've seen this city grow both in good and bad. I feel that this Oversight Board is a great idea. I live in a rough part of town. I can see this work really well, and I can see it not work as well. I think with my background in military security and living in some of the areas that could use this, that I could really help out with doing it. My background with civil rights and equality issues, and excuse my voice, I'm on the back end of a cold.
Yeah, me too.
I'm right there with you.
The civil rights and equality issues, I've done a lot of work here in Middle Tennessee with a lot of LGBTQ communities. I've worked with a lot of they're known as like kink-friendly communities, helping out with a lot of the trans and leather groups. I'm a member of the local UU church and do a lot of volunteer work with them. I have taken a lot of cultural competency courses. Excuse me. And then also my family has a very diverse background. I've got an aunt that's half Mexican. My little nieces are half African American. A very diverse family. And my background with criminal justice and policing practices, like I said earlier, I was in the United States Marine Corps. I joined right after 9/11, served during Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom. That's where I hurt my knee.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, ma'am. Also, I did a lot of moonlighting for security work, bouncer, all that type of fun stuff.
That sounds.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff, right? That's funny. Wow.
I will entertain questions from the committee members.
I was wondering, because I'm getting over a cold too, so I know that probably in the last week you haven't had a whole lot of time other than trying to get well, like me. But I'm curious in reviewing some of the other nominees, if you saw anybody that stood out to you that you hope makes it through the process. Did you see anyone in reviewing that we?
I did not. When I was looking at this, I was going up against myself trying to join. I'm not going up against anybody else, so I didn't really even read the list.
Okay.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Council Lady?
Thank you.
Thank you again for your
Thanks.
experience and appreciate you coming out.
All right, good luck with the rest of the
Thank you.
interviews.
Thank you. It was interesting where people decide to step up.
And now, hold up the time.
I mean,
Now
I do
we're ahead.
I think it's, I mean, it is amazing how many people saw this and said, sign me up.
Serve, yeah. Variety.
What's up?
You
Anybody
want
need
any
any water, anything?
No, but
Thank you.
I would love some water
Really,
if I might.
really quick.
May I just have a cup of water from the tap?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So we have 3 more candidates to interview.
Okay.
I'm assuming our committees were made up of like constituents that were coming in, right? Because I've had a couple for this
Well,
district-wide.
in fact, I
I've
have
got
one.
one.
I have one constituent, but he will be tomorrow, and I actually gonna have to figure that out. We have that Harpeth Trace
Yes, that tomorrow evening, 7:30.
7:30,
Yes.
so I'm gotta be downtown and go out there and then come back downtown. Gotta kind of figure that out, but hopefully I'll be here. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm good, thank you.
This next person is your constituent?
No, this one isn't. Sandra is obviously at the end, a couple in the middle where
District 3.
yeah, Mr. Noble and Miss Lee Smith were. Yeah, that's why we're gonna know, because since he hadn't been in the district for very long, I'll make sure he had my card. So.
So your district backs all the way up to Vanderbilt
I
then?
have Peabody and then I have the freshman housing. So when he was saying he was in the housing, that's where he is. The Commons, that's where he is.
So have you got any part of the intersection of 21st and Woodmont?
I have 21st. I have the best way I describe it is I have Pizza Perfect. Like that's the part of 21st.
That corner.
That little block right there.
And Berkeley's got the other 3?
She's got the other side, and then she's got down like she's got the Pancake Mansion part. Yeah. So, I know, isn't that crazy?
It's, I actually wouldn't have bet that I was that close to your district.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. There's a little part that runs out between Edge Hill and Wedgwood Avenue and runs all the way to 21st.
I could, from my house, I could run into Kathleen's district probably in about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Might take me 5 to get to yours.
Probably, yeah, that'd be about right. Yeah.
Scooter time to District 17. I'll start clocking myself.
That's right.
Bike time, walk
Yeah,
time, run
walk
time,
time,
scooter
walk
time.
time.
Yep.
Scooter time.
I can get to Ed's, I guess, just as fast because he's got the park. Well, he's got the Panera on West End. Is his.
Does he really?
He pops over to that side of West End.
That's so funny. He is more of Midtown than I expected.
He's got a ton of Midtown.
That's I just would never have thought about that.
Yeah, over half of it because he's got the whole. Once you get outside Freddie's district, he's got that whole side of West End.
Recent bills have made me keenly aware. I'm like, oh, wow, I did not realize that was his district.
My work building is in his district.
Freddie? Freddie?
Mr. Kendall.
Now in Kendall's. I was trying hard to move to Colby's district, but couldn't find the right place.
I had all kinds of places. All kinds of
That's
places.
still coming up too.
No, they haven't. Your building's great. Your office is great. They do not begrudge you.
There's plenty of places in the Northeast Corridor.
That is very true. That is very true.
Is Madison Tower in your district?
No, it's District 9. It's over by Madison Park, near the river.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, how is everyone doing?
Well, thank you.
Ms. Pullen, we appreciate being in here. And you got 10 minutes and you got the drill. Please proceed.
Oh, you're good.
Briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reason you wish to serve. First, my name is Najaneiro Pullen. I'm a native of Nashville, Tennessee. I was raised by a single parent mother. I graduated from Pearl High, the historical Pearl High School, not the new one. I joined the military. I did 22 years active duty. I'm now working for Campbell. I've been in federal service for 15 years. During my stay in the military, I was a first responder and also the supervisor for the casualty mortuary affairs, which impacted the 9/11 that the airplanes hit the Pentagon. I was the one, and my supervisor, we were the one to have to identify the families, identify the bodies, and attend every funeral. Make sure that they were dressed, make sure they was dressed accordingly, and also console the family members at that. Every day I briefed the Secretary of Defense and the Chief of Staff on the strategic plans that we had for that day. It lasted about a year to get everything together. Okay, my interest on the Oversight Committee is that I want to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. I have led over 200,000 soldiers and civilians, and I have also followed. I'm a great team player, and I'm a strong leader. My attributes that I bring to this Community Oversight Board would be leadership, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I believe those are great to have on any board. I'm a great strategic planner, and if law enforcement does have some type of misconduct, I think that they should be held accountable. And my reason for wanting to be on this committee is because everything that I did for the military, everything that I'm doing for the federal government, I think I'll be an asset to serve on this committee. I served honorably, and I want to serve the Davidson County citizens honorably. I believe the community and citizens, what they want is honesty and honor. And that's something that I can give.
Thank you again for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to address the question about the civil rights?
Okay, please describe my background and my familiarity with the civil rights and equality. Sure, I have over 35 years of experience, and I want to say on a national level and a broader spectrum. I serve now as the Equal Opportunity Representative for the Fort Campbell at the Soldier and Family Assistance Center, and I also, for 18 years while I was in the military, served as the Equal Opportunity Advisor. And what that entails is I try to make sure the morale is kept up. I fight for individuals. I ensure that no organization is discrimination, and those areas are very difficult because now everybody's interjecting. But the areas that I'm pretty much interested in is sexual harassment, race, color, gender, gender identity, disability, age, and also quid pro quo. So those are the areas that I'm trained in, and those are the areas that I look into right now. Oh, next one, I'm sorry. Please describe your background, experience, and familiarity with criminal justice and policy practice. Okay, right now I maintain a top secret clearance and a secret clearance, depending on whichever one they need at the time. I have over wealth of knowledge, 35 years, as I said before, in the area of military criminal justice. Because I am a minority, I was selected several times, numerous times over my military career to serve on panels or military judicial courts, because they wanted me to sit in because they knew that I had the strength and the tenacity to be biased. I had the strength and tenacity to speak up if somebody was being treated wrong. Those are the areas that are most important to me, and they have carried me throughout my life. I believe everybody needs to be treated the way they want to be treated, and that's what I believe that I can bring to this Oversight Committee. Anything else?
Any question from the committee member?
A few.
Sure.
Again, thanks for your service
Thank you.
to the country. How long have you been living back in Nashville?
I moved back in 2006.
Okay, so a while. You know, we're not running into that many Nashville natives, and so you've got a interesting experience that maybe you could share with us from the time you spent growing up here to now the years you've been back. Do you perceive any difference in
Do I?
police? Well, I know everything's different, but specifically in the relationship between the police department and the community?
I think not only Nashville, I think it's numerous cities and states that are experiencing this difficulty problem. It's just not Nashville. I think once Nashville comes on board with this, I think a lot of cities and states are going to start turning to the Oversight Committee. When I was raised here, like I said, I graduated from Pearl High School. I joined the military thinking that everybody was raised like me, with love, kindness, and respect. That is not true. Everyone comes to the table with a different set of rules and different set of situations. And as time has increased, Nashville has increased. Those situations and time has increased. It was a little wholesome Nashville when I was here. When I moved, I came back and forth every now and then to visit my mom and, of course, home. And when I moved back in 2006, it's a little different and definitely drastic now.
Ms. Pullen, you mentioned that you'd served on several boards, that you've been brought in specifically because of your background, whether it was professional or
Yes.
race or ethnicity.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit to the need to have a variety of backgrounds on a board like this and what you think your specific background would bring?
Sure, my specific background is going to be a wide variety of knowledge because I've traveled all over the nations. I understand different cultures, I understand different people. I bring that's an asset. I think a lot of people, when confrontations are happening, they're going in with one mindset. If they consider that everybody that you're introduced to, everybody that you meet has a situation, they do not come from the same place that you come from. And most people enter into a relationship or enter into a situation not meaning to be biased, but they are because of what is instilled in them. I've been stationed in Korea, Hawaii, Germany, Europe, Washington, D.C., Virginia, and so on and so on. So I've met a variety of individuals, and I want everybody to be treated the same.
Okay. Any other questions? Would you like to say a statement as a conclusion?
Oh, yes, great. I love conclusions. I work at Fort Campbell now, and the reason why I took that job at Fort Campbell because it's the Soldier and Family Assistance Center. And what I do there is I assist those soldiers that come back from Afghanistan, Kuwait, Syria, and they are injured, terminally ill. Most of them, lately, the majority of them are terminally ill, and I assist with counseling them and helping them to transition out the Army. I bring to the table so many attributes that I think I can talk to a person that's 2-year-old versus a person that's 99-year-old. I bring that to the table, and I think on this board that I bring a lot to the board, and I'm quite sure the board will bring a lot to me, add on to me. Okay.
Thank you so
We
much.
appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You guys have a great day, okay?
Thank you. Too.
Thank you so much.
And Council Lady Moore.
Extensive resume, it's 10 pages.
Good evening, Mr. David Hooven. Please have a seat over here.
Thank you. Hi, how are you? You busy?
You have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Please proceed.
All right. Thought I would just put this together so it save time in me tumbling over my lips here. I wish to submit my name and reputation to the Metro Council to be chosen as a member of the Community Oversight Board. My interest in this board began when I realized the great need Nashville has for an entity outside of government, police department, criminal justice system, and media that people can come to trust to investigate without bias major incidents that happen during community protection actions. As a member of this board, I wish to contribute to this non-prejudicial group of citizens that hopefully earn the trust of all and assist in seeing the innocent freed and the guilty punished. Unfortunately, in our city today, we have lots of distrust on all sides. The police worry about another authority looking over their shoulders. The communities worry about the color of their skin being the reason for unjust treatment. And the general public worries about another prejudicial oversight board that has an agenda. The mayor has appointed 2 outstanding qualified people representing the education system in Ms. Phyllis Hindreth and the legal system in Mr. Bob Cooper. The other 4 will come from council districts that are declared disadvantaged. That leaves 5 members to be selected from other areas. I wish to be considered for one of these remaining 5 positions. Why am I requesting this position is the biggest question on all of your minds. My background spans over 20 years of volunteer service and working on the front lines, face to face, with the people involved in the criminal justice system and the economically and socially disadvantaged. My work to assist in breaking the systemic problem of recidivism over the years is paying off. While working with the Men of Valor program, we have reduced recidivism in the state an average of from 60 to 70% to just under 10%. The majority of these men are from diverse cultures. The work I've been involved in over the years includes church youth director, initiating intercity youth crews to help repair homes in East Nashville, initiated the first group to participate in the Mountaintop Tennessee Outreach Program, participated in Habitat for Humanity in building homes in Nashville, participated in the Mountaintop Tennessee Outreach Program working for the disadvantaged in the Cumberland Mountain Plateau with youth and adults, participated in the Hannah Project and traveled overseas to work in Ecuadorian jungles to assist in home construction, taught Battlefield of the Mind in Metro Jail by myself in an attempt to show the men inside that their thinking must change before anything else does. Participated, my mouth's getting dry, I'm sorry. Participated in Men of Valor as a mentor to prison inmates, taught Jobs for Life, a program of training of men to obtain a job after incarceration. I was honored to be selected as a board member. I actively recruited business owners to employ our men. My wife and I taught financial management to the men and their wives released from prison, contributed financially to this organization for over 16 years. Attended the 2018 Belmont Symposium on Criminal Reform. Attended the 2018 Prison Reform Symposium sponsored by the Latinos for Tennessee at the Capitol Club. I said to my son in his years of drug abuse, convictions, and incarceration, through all of this time, I've grown to see the good, the bad, and the ugly in the people and systems on all sides. I hope to join my fellow board members in providing civil discourse that will model cooperative diversity as we work together as a board for a just outcome on these critical issues. If we can earn the trust of all sides and become a voice of reason in very controversial and highly volatile situations, this may become one of the best boards to facilitate bringing our city together. I ask you to consider me for the board, and thank you so much for your time and work that you're doing here today. Do you have any questions for me?
question?
One question. You mentioned near the beginning of that statement, I'm not sure whether I got it exactly right, that the public worries about another prejudicial board.
Yes.
And I guess maybe I'd ask you to talk about that a little bit more, given the fact that the strong majority of the county voted for it. It strikes me that maybe the public's actually not worried about that. So just not sure what you meant by that.
Excellent question. I feel they're uninformed. They don't know where the money's going. There's fear anytime we have something like this. And I hear on the radio various comments about, well, this is an uneducated, don't know anything about anything board, which obviously with the programs we're going to be going through in addition to our personal backgrounds, that's not the case. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I'm still, so the voters are uneducated? Just over 60% of the county voted for it.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be applying for it if I didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of doubt and distrust, that's all I'm saying, from people I've heard on all sides of this thing. I went over here to the Baptist College and listened and was really informed and saw from soup to nuts about issues in there. Mm-hmm. And then talking to police men that I see, I just say, hey, what do you think about this oversight board? And then on the radio as well. I just think it's the information is not, well, why are they getting $1.5 million? And I said, that's not going to us. That's to hire the expertise, all of the things that have to be done to create this. So there's just a lot of education that needs to be done, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other question from the members?
Well, thank you so much.
Would you like to say anything in conclusion?
Yes, I would. I think Nashville, as I mentioned, the thing that I see is an opportunity to, on this diverse board, to actually bring together people of all cultures that can demonstrate that we can do not only a fair job, but a great job in answering the public's questions about incidents that are going to be highly volatile. We just saw another one today on the TV, and there just seems to be craziness happening, and I don't have all the answers, but I do look at the information presented and attempt to make a decision based on the facts.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Mr. Hooven.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize for my asthma attack.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it. Are you okay?
I was rescued by an inhaler and Rosie and a cough drop, so we're good.
I got one too.
It's like, what?
I'm like you.
You know when you have a cold and it's like it always gets worse at nighttime? Evidently,
Sure
7:15 is nighttime. We just have one left.
Yes, one last person for this evening.
Former council member?
Yes. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel now.
And then tomorrow there's a whole new tunnel.
Another one.
No, I know.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Going in session. Makes it sound so official, we're going in session. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Yes, I did.
You spent a lot of time in these rooms.
Well, yeah.
Yes, let's spend 10 minutes together. Please proceed, Council Lady.
Okay, so, one of the reasons why that I have an interest in the Community Oversight Board. When I saw how many votes that the public, that it received from this referendum, I just thought that was just, awesome. And so I just said I wanted to be a part of the process. I wanted to know more about, police policy, but also, too, it helps, give the public hope to sort of gain trust and insight of what's going on. So that's one. It's a win-win situation. That's one of the reasons why that I wanted to be a part of this process. So, yeah. So, am I supposed to keep going?
Yes. Would you like to address the second question about the civil rights?
Well, one of the things that I do, that I've been doing most of since I started working, especially in the area of working with children in behavioral health, is that I have to go to court with them sometimes, or court with the families, and make sure that the government item is on point with making sure they're getting the services that they need, and also the services that they receive in the home. So I make sure that that I do that, especially the process of what juvenile court does. And the other thing is that I go to been to a lot of voter suppression forums just to make sure that we're updated on. If I'm telling somebody that these are your rights about voting rights, then I need to be on point going to forums. And also I have to attend ongoing workshops about civil rights on my job, just to making sure that my clients know the laws, especially when it comes to the area of juvenile justice. So and that's my background there. On number 3, on the criminal justice and policy practices, I had it's been a while, but I did have a wonderful opportunity to go to the FBI Federal Bureau Investigations Academy, and I learned a lot from that. I didn't do Metro. I said, well, okay, is it about the same? I wasn't sure. But to keep myself updated, I was a panelist, about last year, with the Sheriff's Department on, criminal reform, and that had a lot to do with mental health, and also not only mental health, but persons who have those mental health issues, are their rights being violated? We need to understand that. Again, keeping myself abreast of what's going on in the community, I do that a lot, so, and what else? Oh, yeah, the mayor had her equal rights forum that I attended as well back then before she resigned. So, but just ongoing, trying to stay abreast of what's keeping myself familiar. And the only way I keep myself familiar is by basically, you have to attend forums, you have to attend workshops. And again, this all just still come back to my job, I had a kid that run away recently, and when I was looking at the laws, I was like, okay, there is nothing on the books, and each county is different, and that's unfortunate, but it's still overall, Tennessee has no laws that says, you have to return that child to the parent, but then again, they still have to put services in. I mean, we can then file, making sure that kid know that, unruly charges are filed against him, and then what his rights are, So those are things that I have continued to try to educate myself on.
Thank you. Question from the committee members?
No questions from me.
I have one question I've asked a handful of candidates, and that is in spending some time with this large number of folks that have stepped up, which has been really actually quite amazing. I'm not sure that you've had a chance to kind of look through the list of some names or an individual popped out to you that you thought, what, that would be fantastic if they were on the Community Oversight Board.
On the candidates? Well, there was one young lady who lives in the district, and I forgot Tika's last name, but still, she's young and she is wanting to get involved in what's going on in the community. And when she told me that she was interested in doing this, and I said, please, by all means, and she had wanted my support, and I said, I'll be glad to sign your form. I had no problem with that because this is an open, excuse me, my throat is dry. This is an open, This is an open board, you know, and she went through the process of getting her 50 names, but just more or less encouraging her to say, hey, you have a right just like anybody else to, and to, you know, to get involved in what's going on, and just make sure that when you do apply, just let, you know, people know how engaging you have been in the community.
Yeah.
So.
That's good.
Council Lady?
I'm the last one.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you so
really
much.
appreciate
Look at y'all. I just can't take it.
Yeah,
See you all again.
Yeah, do what we gotta do, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So that concludes today's interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Right.
Golly.